Hello, friends and listeners. Welcome to Truth, Lies, and Alibis, the true crime podcast from three friends sharing their perspectives from having years of 911 dispatch experience.
Episode 8.
We have a kidnapping.
JonBenet Ramsey, Part 1. In today's episode, Brittany, Jess, and I begin to discuss the suspicious circumstances surrounding JonBenet's case.
Today's question I have for you guys is, what true crime case got you interested in true crime?
I think I might have to let Kylee go first on this one.
I don't know. I think I don't know. It might have been just like cases, right? Like my dad being a police officer, I would hear his stories and like the cases he talked about. I can't remember the first one. And I mean, he was pretty good. Like, it wasn't like I was super young and he's like, this murder happened and this is all the details. But I think him being in law enforcement and then, I don't know, like Unsolved Mysteries was awesome back then.
I remember watching that too.
Forensic Files, and I loved Law and Order. I know that has nothing to do, like, it's, and then when the SVU came out, I was like, yeah, no, I gotta watch this. It's like, religiously loved it. But I think I really started getting into true crime probably like in middle school, and I think this is so weird, but I was like obsessed with serial killers. I really was interested in like Ramirez and John Wayne Gacy and Bundy. Like, I know these guys are like the big, you know, like PK, the Zodiac, like all of these cases and how they operated all within like kind of the same time frame and the psychology behind it. I was super interested in that. So like when shows or books or like stuff would come out about that stuff, I was like, I gotta listen to that. So I think it was those cases are what kind of drew me in. It's like, how are they different from everybody else? And how did they, you know, like how did they get away with all of this stuff? I mean, some, like we talked about those toolbox killers, and they were on freaking parole, like for how many years or how long or how many victims, like people that we know about, like, and they just, like, how long it takes for them to get caught, but how they operate, then they can blend in, but they're so different from normal, quotes, normal person.
I saw your thing on Instagram about how many serial killers operate. You want to tell us, Kylee, how many serial killers are operating in the United States?
Yeah, so I put out a question that said, how many serial killers do you think operate in the United States at one time? Because I had read an interesting article recently about that. And you'll never know actually like how many, because like how can you? But they estimate it was between like 25 to 50 serial killers operating within the United States within a given year. I thought it would be way...
Like one for every...
One per state.
Yeah, one per state.
You know, no biggie.
Well, I thought it would actually be way higher, because I thought, well, maybe they would consider like murder-suicide with family, because that could be considered, it's more than 3, but it wasn't that. It was a kind of difficult to figure out where that statistic came from, but if you go to the FBI website and you look at the Uniform Crime Statistics, you'll be able to find how they like narrow down their violent crime statistics.
What about you, Jess?
It's funny that you mentioned Unsolved Mysteries, because while you're talking I was trying to figure out what I could possibly talk about as far as like growing up with true crime. And I do remember watching Unsolved Mysteries as a kid. I remember being properly freaked out, I think, as I should have been as a child. Maybe not everybody was, my present company included. But for some reason I also thought that it covered like supernatural weird things. Like I could have sworn if you had asked me...
No, it did.
Okay. Right, okay,
it really
so,
did.
Okay, thank goodness, because I saw it come back, and I was like, oh, this is only true crime, and I was like, I swear I remember something about an alien abduction. Like,
they talked about alien abductions, they talked about spontaneous combustion.
Okay.
They did. Like, weird stuff, but interesting stuff.
Because I specifically remember being freaked out by the idea of aliens as a child, specifically because of Unsolved Mysteries.
I don't think that was their goal. They probably weren't like, oh, what should we put on here for children?
We
probably weren't supposed to be watching it.
My mom wouldn't let me watch ER, but she'd let me watch Unsolved Mysteries.
Here's this graphic photo of a murder, but you can't watch a show about doctors.
Fake operation.
Right.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there was like any sort of like true crime interest growing up other than Unsolved Mysteries, watching that, and then I would watch the procedurals that come on in high school. If there was nothing on television, you could bet $5 that Spike would have a CSI marathon going, and so I could watch CSI for forever. So I would watch the procedurals for a long time. Bones was my favorite show.
What about Criminal Minds?
Criminal Minds. I didn't see Criminal Minds until I had Netflix, so I didn't remember watching it when it was on before it hit Netflix, I should say. I didn't watch it before then, but I watched Bones for that show is actually what got me interested in criminal psychology because of the character on there, which I've kind of touched on before. But I think my interest for true crime always came from the psychology part of it, and I didn't really get into that until college anyway.
Today's case was a highly requested case on our socials. It also happens to be the case that I have watched every single documentary on TV about it, everything. I've kept up with it throughout the years. And it is the case of JonBenet Ramsey. It's also the case that got me into true crime, I think, because when it happened, I was about her age. And it was on the news, and my grandparents watched the news all the time. And so I saw everything. And I kind of related to her a little bit because I was this little blonde-haired girl who also was in pageants. I think Jess was there, too, with me.
Was. Yes.
We could have been there together and didn't even know. And Kylee was out hunting. I just remember watching the news and being so scared because I was like, if that could happen to that little girl, it could happen to me. And I was too young to understand really what had happened, but I was it was scary, right? You're watching it and you're like, oh my God, somebody came into this home and just killed this poor girl. Like I said, since then I've tried to keep up on the case and all the tips and the details that have come in across the years, and nothing obviously that has helped solve the case really, but it's still interesting. And I think part of the reason why it was so interesting was because of who the victim was and the family. Everyone has their theories, so I feel like I have to ask another question. If you know the case, do you have any theories?
I remember it in the news. I remember hearing about it. I didn't retain any. I just knew that this girl had died. I remember seeing it on everywhere, right? On the news, TV, magazines, radio. Literally, they talked about it everywhere. My mom followed it, which I think most of the country did at that time because it was so big in the news, but my mom paid a lot of attention to it. When I told my mom that we were doing this episode, she definitely feels like the family had something to do with it. I don't know any of the details to be able to weigh in on that. I literally am coming into this blind. I don't remember anything from being a kid. So my mom
Shout
thinks
out
the
to
family's
Jessica's mom.
Shout out to my mom.
Oh, hey.
And I'll have to come back to you at the end, Jess, to ask you what you think.
Okay, yeah.
You agree with her or not.
Yeah.
Kylee. I know Kylie's got to have a theory.
Okay, well, I agree with Jessica's mom that family had a lot. I just think they're involved. I think that they had a lot to do with it. I think there was a cover-up. I think that whether the parents felt
My mom said that too.
guilty or not, yeah, I'm convinced that they were 100% involved. I'm kind of like Jessica, where I remember this case. I remember, shout out to my mom too. I love you. This is just what I remember. Because we were pretty young. My mom I think she didn't really let us watch a whole lot on it. I think she followed it too. I do remember asking my mom what happened to that little girl, and my mom telling me that she had died. But I didn't understand at that time. I didn't understand. As I got older, I started to look into it and did my own follow up on it. But I think when I was younger, I didn't really know what was happening.
I am also with your mom's and Kylie's theory. But don't let that persuade you, Jess. Let's just try to have an open mind, because we got to know what you think. Okay?
I'll take in all the facts. I'm a blank slate.
And Jess is going to solve this crime right here, right now. Okay?
Right now. Within this episode. I'll solve this case that professionals haven't solved in years. I got you.
You're welcome, FBI.
All right. On Christmas 1996, the Ramseys, JonBenet, Patsy, John, and Burke woke up and celebrated Christmas. JonBenet received a bike, and Burke and JonBenet played with friends that morning and the afternoon. That night, they went to a friend's house for a Christmas party. This is the last time anyone aside from the Ramseys was known to see JonBenet alive. John told the police when they got home he put JonBenet to bed. She was 6 years old at the time. So he said they came home from the Christmas party and then he put her to bed, and that was the last time that they had seen her. At 5:52 the next morning, Patsy, the mother, placed a 911 call, and I'm going to play it now.
911 emergency.
Police.
What's going on?
515th Street.
What's going on there, ma'am?
We have a kidnapping. Hurry, please.
Explain to me what's going on, okay?
There's a note left and our daughter's gone.
A note was left and your daughter is
Yes.
gone? How old is your daughter?
6 years old. She's gone. 6 years old.
How long ago was it?
I don't know. I just found the note. And my daughter's
Does it say who took her?
What?
Does it say who took her?
I don't know. There's a ransom note here.
It's a ransom note?
It says FBTC. Victory. Please.
Okay, what's your name? Are you
Patsy Ramsey. I'm the mother. Oh my God. Please.
I'm sending an officer over, okay?
Please.
Do you know how long she's been
No,
gone?
I don't. Please, we just got out. Is she right here? Oh my God, please.
Okay, well,
There's somebody.
I am, honey.
Please.
Take a deep breath,
Please,
okay?
hurry.
Patsy.
All right. Jess, your face when you were listening, what were you thinking?
Well, I don't want to ask too many questions because I feel like it's stuff that you're going to go over. One of the things was like, what the heck is STBC or SBTC or whatever that was on the note? Like, I have questions about the note, but I'm sure that we're going to go over that.
Oh, I'm going to read you the long ransom note that was left behind.
Oh, okay, yes.
What was I?
What did you think?
It sounded fake to me. I know that sounds really... I believe that she had true fear and grief, and she was truly afraid. I feel like...
Like it was rehearsed.
Yeah. On a lot of 911's calls that I took, and I don't know if everybody else agrees with this or not, but this is a common factor that you would say, you know, your city 911, where's your emergency? And a lot of people wouldn't start off with their address like that. A lot of people would be like, there's somebody here, they're not breathing, or there's been a car accident. And because like, I think when people initially listen, they're not listening to you. They're calling 911 and they're ready to tell you what happened. And you can say, okay, where are you? Where is this at? Do you know your mile marker? You ask the appropriate questions because your first go-to is the address, or where the location is of the emergency. I just feel like her telling her address right off the bat was kind of like weird for me.
Yeah. I feel like I can add on to that. I definitely see where you're coming from. That is something that is more common, is that frantic chaos of them not listening to you. And I think a detail that I noticed is she has that chaotic rambling, but it's not the panic that I'm familiar with coming from a situation like that. Normally when you get that, it's my daughter's gone. The last time I saw her was when I put her to bed. Like, we just woke up. Like, there's some of that there, but there's no, like, when's the last time you saw her? Or how long ago did this happen? Well, I don't know. There's a note. The last time you would have seen her, right? Like, you know, we put her to bed last night and everybody went to bed and it was fine. Like, there's that rambling there, but it's not, again, and this is just coming into it blind. Everybody handles those situations differently. So who am I to say what exactly happened on the other end of that call? I'll save that for later when I solve everything. But I feel like you would want to, there's that rambling that people have in that sort of state when they want to give you everything that, she says she's blonde, right? But she says, you know, she's 6, she's blonde. And then she says like she's 6 years old or something like that again. But there's no like, again, last time I saw her, we put her to bed. I just feel like there's not enough, I don't know. Well, what to say.
I mean,
I think I agree with both of you, and I think it was weird that she said we have a kidnapping. I don't know, just
Like,
the way
not
it was
my daughter's
worded.
been kidnapped.
Yeah, I mean, we've all had those calls, right? Where I've never taken an actual kidnapping call, but you've had those calls where people call in and they're freaking out because their child is missing, and a lot of times they end up hiding under the bed or in the closet, or they think it's funny, or they're around the corner, or like doing something they shouldn't be doing, and they're okay, which thank God, but the parents are freaking out, and like, yeah, she was freaking out, but just the things she was saying were just kind of strange. Like, she's not like, oh my God, my daughter's missing. Like you said, there's not a big story behind it, and just the details that she does give, it's like, okay, but
there's no.
It's like
why
very
is that all you're saying?
minimal. Yeah, it's very minimal and repeated. Like, she's more fixated on the note than the fact that her daughter is gone.
Well, there's no.
Which I get, like, nobody wants to wake up and find their daughter gone with a ransom note. Again, coming at this blind.
There's nothing about like any like we were saying earlier, like the missing kids calls that we've taken. Usually they're like, I put her to bed at 8:00. It's 10:00 now.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
And a lot of parents would tell me, oh my God, they were wearing a blue shirt. Or you'd say, what are they wearing? Like, oh, I think it was a blue shirt. I know they were wearing their Superman shoes. And a parent would have very specific, and you would say, okay, what color is their hair? It's brown. And there's always that true, and like you can hear it, like the true panic that a parent has when they don't know where their kid is. I don't feel like I really heard that in her voice. And again, everybody handles things differently. But I mean, I've taken quite a few missing kids calls. The parents were pretty hysterical, and it was hard to keep them going with the information and get them back on track, and they weren't fixated on one thing except for the fact that their kid is gone. So it wasn't fixated on the note, like you know what I mean, like their teddy bear's still in their bed. It was never that. It was like, I last saw them here and I don't know where they are anymore, and that was
just
weird.
get me some help. Yeah, and the other thing that's weird to me is that she hung up. So in a lot of documentaries that I've watched and a lot of things that I've covered, they think that she didn't hang up right away. And if she didn't hang up, it's like she instantly went to silence after she said, oh, Jesus. Like, you know what I mean? That's weird in itself. And I don't know if you guys have seen the documentaries at all, but in one of them, they kind of try to listen to what's being said in the background because they think they can hear voices. And a couple people have said that they can hear 3 voices, and they think there's a woman's voice, a man's voice, and like a young child's voice, and that the child says something like, what did you find? And then they think that Patsy said, we called the cops, now what? Which is weird. So they've tried to enhance the audio. Obviously, when you watch these documentaries and someone tells you that's what they hear, that's all you're going to hear when they play it because it's in your mind.
You're listening essentially for it.
Yeah, I just think it's weird how it cuts off right there, because if you're freaking out, your panic's not going to stop when you hang up that phone.
And I can't recall, and again, I have taken dozens of missing kid calls. Some of them that have been legit, some of them that are just a kid went home with a friend at the bus stop and didn't tell nobody. Yeah. I've taken all of those, and I have never been hung up on by a parent.
Nope, because they want you to come help.
Yes.
They really want your help.
It was a weird call. And not, in all honesty, I think that's the first time I've actually heard the 911 call for this case. So
yeah,
that's a call where I probably would have sent an officer a message saying, she sounded weird on this 911, you might want to listen to it. I get that her kid's missing, and again, people handle things differently, but that's one where I may have said something to an officer where it would be like, this is weird. The parent didn't.
Yeah, I don't.
Their
feel
reaction.
Right about this call.
They're more focused on a note, immediately saying we've had a kidnapping. Just to automatically say I've had a kidnapping, and I get the note, right? Like I get the note, but it just seemed. It was weird.
Speaking of the note, I'm gonna read this note to you, but first I want to know. I know I'm asking like a lot of questions, but when you think of a ransom note, what do you think of?
Time and place and money.
Okay.
Like the demand.
Not,
I guess not necessarily always money. It's ransom.
Or
so
like a
most
blackmail.
of the time it is money, but the demand.
Yeah. And it's short and sweet, right?
Yeah.
Tells you what do you want, and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me get ready, because this is like a freaking novel I'm about to read to you. So, this is the ransom note. The longest ransom note in history. I mean, probably. I read somewhere that it was. And probably hasn't changed because I don't know anyone who would write something this long. Sorry.
Or wrong, I guess.
Yeah.
Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence an earlier delivery pickup of your daughter. Any deviation of my instructions will result in immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Jess's face. Hold on.
Two gentlemen.
Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authority, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny, as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use the good southern common sense of yours. It is up to you now, John. Victory. Signed, SBTC.
They go from using like super big words to
fancy words, attaché.
Super fancy words to then going back to like, it just seems like somebody else wrote the beginning and somebody else wrote the end.
It's brainstorming.
It's way too much. And 118,000, like whatever, 118. That is very specific. $100,000 I could understand. $1 million I could understand. 150.
Even 120.
Right, but 100. Like, why do you need it? Why is specifically 118? What significance is that? And it's so long, and then it's in an early delivery. Like, if you're gonna write a ransom note, you're gonna say, "Be here with this money at this time, and if you're not, then I'm gonna fucking kill him." Or if you call the cops, then I'm gonna come. You know what I mean? Like, we are gonna know, and I'm gonna fucking kill him. A ransom note. That's like, how many pages is that? Like 8? It's
so wordy.
Super wordy.
It's overly done, like you said before. We have your daughter. We respect your company, but blah 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 blah. Unnecessary verbiage. Like right. That's not the point. You're also kidnapper that wants to use ransom to get money. They're not going to leave behind clues that can narrow down who they are. They're not going to be like
foreign faction.
We're a foreign faction that works that respects your company, but blah 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 blah. No, they're gonna say we have your daughter.
Country.
We have your daughter. We want this much money now. If you don't do it and contact the police, we'll kill her.
No, that's not like that at all. This is 36 lines, and it was a total of 3 pages.
See, that's insane.
Good gracious!
It was like Jessica. It's brainstormed. There's also the word, like the verb. It's almost. Have you guys seen Die Hard?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Do you know the fancy like German guy who? Yeah. What's his name that plays Snape? Why am I forgetting his name?
Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman. What's his name in that movie? Though?
I don't know. It reminds me of that. Like when he's like he's all fancy, right? And they're all fancy, and it just seems like it's like you watched Die Hard that morning. Like, they really should look and see if they fucking watch Die Hard. Because that's all it reminds me of.
It is a Christmas movie.
Right. Because it does. It reminds me of that, where the guy has his whole spiel. And it's weird.
Like you said, there's 2... Well, 1, it's too long. 2, there's too many weird
Ashante.
words that for a freaking ransom note.
Yeah.
And so we'll circle back to the ransom note later, but let me just tell you a little bit more, okay? At 6, the first officer arrives on scene. They quickly search the home and see no signs of a break-in. They secure JonBenet's room, but not the rest of the house. And after police arrive, the Ramseys call some friends who make their way over to the Ramsey house. So there's one thing that I hear said over and over and over again in everything that's been done about this case is that Boulder PD did not handle the case well. They made a huge mistake in letting so many people into the crime scene. People were literally walking through the house and cleaning up, leaving evidence. If there was any evidence, they were...
Well, and also, if you were a parent and you believed this ransom note to be real, one of the things, you've already called the police, and now you're inviting, like, they told you not to tell anybody, so
and you're going to tell the whole
you're
neighborhood.
already telling your police, and then you're having friends come over, and that's obviously, like, what?
That's weird.
Anyway, continue.
Like Jess said, they said not to tell anybody, and they were watching them.
Right.
So 1, they called the police over. 2, they
And
called the
then
whole
all of their
neighborhood
friends?
over for an ice cream social or something. I don't know. I mean, what are you calling them all over for if you're worried about your daughter? It's weird.
Also,
to me.
like, why not say, like, in that 911, wouldn't that be something, like, wouldn't you be more concerned? Like, Jessica brings up a good point. Wouldn't you be more concerned? Like, the note says for us not to contact the police. The note says that they are watching us. So, and she says, well, I'm sending an officer over. Wouldn't that freak you out as a parent? Wouldn't you say, no, I don't want an officer to come to my house. I want, like, have somebody call me because I really think that this is a kidnapping, or I have this ransom note.
Or have them be undercover, or
have a plainclothes officer
unmarked.
come over. Something, like, or, you know what I mean? Like, something different.
It's interesting, too, the part of the note that she decides to tell is just the end with the SBTC victory, instead of saying they said they want this money, or that they said that they're watching us, or that they said they know my husband's name.
Yeah.
Instead of the things that feel more important, she fixated on the signature. Yeah, I mean, you definitely be like, I don't know, it says it's STBC, whatever. I'm probably screwing that up every time I say it. But the victory part, I don't know. It seems like you would say, oh my God, they said they're going to cut my daughter's head off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or the important things in there. They said if we called you, they would kill her. They said this. So at 1300, investigators suggest that John go to search the house. So the officers that had been there had been called to go to a meeting about it. And I guess they left a young investigator on scene. And they suggested that he go search the house because he seemed really anxious. And in between the morning and this time, I guess they had tried to make arrangements to get the $118,000 out of the bank.
So the dad was anxious, or this investigator? Who did they say was anxious?
The dad. So,
Okay.
he's anxious, he's upset. So the investigator suggests, hey, why don't you go search the house again? And it's this giant house. I don't know. It's like their mansion or something. And so the young officer on the scene said, go search the house. He took his friend. I think his name was Fleet White. Yeah, his name is Fleet White. And she says, search the house from top to bottom. And he starts at bottom. He starts in the wine cellar is what they call it. But really the pictures of the crime scene, it's just like an extra storage room. And it just had a bunch of crap in there. So he walks down to that room, and then apparently he shouts, I found her, or something like that, and then turns the light on and grabs her.
How did they know that? Did he say that?
The friend did. Fleet White says
Oh,
it was kind of weird because I think he said he found her first before he turned the lights on. And she was laying on the floor, and I mean, I guess maybe officers didn't know to turn the light on, which... whatever, but how did they miss the body if they searched the whole house to begin with?
That's weird.
Yeah. He grabs her body and takes it upstairs to the living room where everyone else is and is like crying, and she appeared to have been strangled, and there was duct tape around her neck and mouth. So she also had it looked like a homemade garrote, and it had paintbrushes, which turned out to be Patsy's as the handles, which is a little bit strange. Yeah.
Okay, I have a
so on
question.
December 27th, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So,
That's okay.
the police get there and they search the whole house. And while they're searching the whole house, mom and dad call friends over. And the friends come over. And then the friends are searching the house too?
Well, I guess in between then and like the 1:00 p.m., they had made arrangements to get the money out of the bank or something. At least that's what I read online. And then they were like, he seemed a little bit anxious, so she like gave him a job to do to like keep him occupied, and that was to search the house. So him and his friend Fleet White, that was the like Patsy's second phone call was to them, him and his wife, to come over after she called the police. On December 27th, the county coroner ruled JonBenet's death as a homicide. The autopsy results state cause of death of the 6-year-old female is asphyxia by strangulation associated with craniocerebral trauma. And so I'm going to read the final results of the autopsy that I found online. It was the strangulation, the ligature marks, abrasions, and petechial hemorrhages, conjunctival surface of the eyes, skin, and face, the cerebral injuries, a scalp contusion, a fracture of the right side of the skull, and a linear pattern on the right side, subarachnoid and subdural hemorrhage, small contusion, tips of the temporal lobes, so again, head trauma, abrasion of the right cheek, and there was a abrasion on her right shoulder and her left lower back and left lower leg. And then there was abrasion to the vaginal mucosa and then ligature of the right wrist. The autopsy also showed that JonBenet had undigested pineapple in her stomach, and there was a bowl of pineapple and milk on the table in the home. Fingerprints on the bowl belonged to Patsy Ramsey and Burke Ramsey. Back to John finding the body. After finding her body, he was overheard making arrangements for their private plane to leave Colorado. So after finding his daughter's body, he's making arrangements to leave the state. Investigators informed him that they would need to stay and speak to police. However, the Ramseys would not speak to the police separately and only agreed to talk to investigators if they would be able to do it together. They didn't make any statements about the case until December 28th, and they also did not let police talk to Burke and requested a child interviewer speak to him. And from what I saw online, they didn't even talk to Burke until June 10th through 12th in 1998.
June? Oh, 1998?
Yep, and if you'll remember, it was Christmas 1996 when this
It's a whole
happened.
year and a half. It's insane. I don't know how, you're right. The police department did a terrible job handling this case. I'm sorry. I'm so angry.
No.
That little girl was
How does a looking at this, like if this is any other case, how does an entire, however many officers, investigators, detectives you send to this house to search for this girl miss an entire room, along with quote-unquote family friends that you've called over because you're distraught, I guess, about your daughter being missing, apparently kidnapped, even though you're told not to tell anybody? Anyway, how do they miss an entire room in which the body was so easily seen that the light didn't even need to be turned on? I don't believe any of that.
That little girl suffered so much before she died. Just that autopsy report, I don't think that mom was saying, "Help me, Jesus," for her daughter.
Because of...
I think it was for her sake. Because I just don't...
For her soul.
Yeah, because
Or to get her through this without getting caught.
How old was the pineapple and the milk that was for Burke that they found? The correlation between that. So is that breakfast?
So Patsy says nobody's claimed to ever have made it, right? So Patsy says to
Bullshit, your fucking
investigators-
fingerprints are on it.
Yep. And she says to investigators, I think something like, I would never have put this bowl and this spoon together or something like that. Like that's how she's saying she didn't make it because the spoon was too big or something. So here's, Kylee, I agree. It's obvious that someone was like molesting her. Somebody was. And I wonder if it was dad. I mean, I don't know. Or was it mom? Because, I mean, females can be sexual predators too.
That's true.
And
That's true.
Or
were they allowing somebody to come in and do this to her?
Or the brother was making his pineapple and milk, and she got into it because she liked pineapple and milk, because obviously she ate it somewhere, right? And he got mad.
I forgot about
And
that.
hit her.
You're right.
Sorry, I want to kind of jump back from speculation just to kind of
Yes.
like... So, did they ever figure out these injuries? They ever figure out where they came from? How she came to have these injuries?
From what I've read and seen and stuff, they don't say how exactly she got, like, the vaginal injuries. They do say the pediatrician says that she was a perfectly healthy girl and that she was not sexually abused, and which maybe they think that, you know, because parents who are abusing their children are good liars. And I'm not saying that that's what happened. That's just what I think. But they don't do a detailed vaginal exam on children that age. Like, they're not going to do that. So how would the pediatrician be able to say that
Make
with
that call.
certainty? You know, they do say, and a lot of the stuff that I've watched recently, they say that there was a flashlight, like a big flashlight on the table in the home that matches up to her head injuries. So
Okay.
it could have been the flashlight that she was hit with. However, she's also got, what did I say, abrasions on her legs,
On her leg.
Yeah, strangulation.
on her shoulder. She's got hemorrhages on her neck. And I mean, the eyes, obviously that's from being strangled, right? But
Yeah. Well, you don't. It feels to me like there's some sort of level of premeditation, because with the homemade garrote, right, that's made from items around the house, you don't, you know, whether brother's making himself a midnight snack and sister wakes up and sneaks some, whatever the situation is, like, that's hopefully, I guess I shouldn't say that's not lying around. I would hope that a homemade garrote isn't just lying around, but there's preparation and thought that goes into making something like that. And like, what could I use as handles? Oh, these paintbrushes.
And that seems like a little bit much for a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Yes.
I actually do remember watching some documentaries and actually agreeing that the brother did it and mom and dad covered up.
But the thing
Well,
is, like, there's so many theories, so it's good that we cover them.
It's true.
Well, why don't we...
So on December 30th, police collected DNA and hair samples from John and Patsy, and on December 31st, she was laid to rest. The initial investigation focused on the parents, Patsy and John, and Lou Smith, who was a detective and came out of retirement in early 1997, assisted the Boulder County District Attorney's Office with the case, and in May 1998, he presented his findings and said that the evidence pointed away from the Ramseys and pointed towards a home intruder.
But there was no sign of a break-in.
Nope.
Also,
There's I know you've said it already, there's a lot of balls dropped with this. Like,
Yeah.
how does... It doesn't matter if the kid is 10 years old or not. How does nobody even think to talk to the kid until a year and a half later? Why, when you get there, are you not pulling him aside and talking to him? Also, if you're suspects in a case, who cares if you don't want to talk to police separated? You're going to talk to them separated. Like, that's part of your job, is to interview your suspects.
And to get their statement, like, yes, maybe you're looking at it as they are victims because their daughter was murdered, right? And I hate that sounds like I feel for people in those situations. That's not what I'm saying.
But
I'm
it's so
saying,
crucial and important.
yes, because one, time can change that memory. No matter
Yes.
if it's the next day or 2 days later, it can change that memory. Two, let's say they were involved in it. Now they have time to cover up that story. And then when they're sitting and they're talking to investigators, it's not them telling their story, it's them reacting to the other person's story. So she says, oh, this is what happened. And he just says, oh, yeah, that's what happened.
Also,
You know what I mean?
that ransom note said that if they did any of this, they called people, that they would kill her and they would deny her her body. How is it that all of a sudden she's dead in a room in the house?
In the house.
Because if you're gonna leave a note, you're fucking gone, right? Like, you're not are you just hanging out in a closet with the kid?
Well, and that's the thing too, right? Like, you're leaving a ransom note telling them you're demanding all this money, we're watching you, don't tell anybody. Also, if they had already killed her, they wouldn't leave the body for the family to find before the payout either.
Right. And especially
why fake a ransom note if your daughter is still in your house?
Right. Well, and that's what I was thinking, like, as you were talking. I was like, holy shit. If it doesn't give any more, like, proof to have, like, a whatever theory you think, why would somebody who kidnaps somebody write that note and then leave? I'm going to deny you her body so you can't, like, you're saying I'm going to hurt you as much as I can hurt you in that, like, sadistic manner, and then not. Like, that's weird.
It's
There's
weird.
another, so
The
here's
whole thing's
another
weird.
weird coincidence. Yeah.
And not wanting to talk to the police. I don't have children, and I don't plan to ever have children, but I can understand if something happened to a child of mine, I would not rest until guilty parties were found. So why would you stop talking and refuse to talk to officers?
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Sitting there like making demands that, and I can understand being afraid that, okay, they're coming, this has happened, they're gonna, obviously family is gonna be the first suspects, right? Like, I can understand being afraid of that. But if I was a parent, my kid was missing and the cops came up to me and said, hey, we have to ask you some questions to rule you out, I would be like, fuck, ask me away. You want my credit card? Here's my credit card. You want my phone? Here's my phone. Anything, you need anything, take it, because let's find my, like, also probably, like, stop asking me questions to find my kid. But I can understand the fear in that, but that's to a point where it's like Gabby Petito's case. When Brian Laundrie's parents, they refused to cooperate because they freaking knew he was guilty. So that's just, like, the similarities I see in it, right? Like, oh, okay, this is real. Police are here. Yeah, we're not, because then our stories aren't going to match.
Like you were saying, they didn't seem to want to help the police, right? But I don't remember if they went on TV before they spoke to the police or not, but they did have quite a few, I mean, you guys remember because your moms were watching it. They had quite a few appearances on news networks that were a little bit odd. And I remember specifically there's one, it was like CNN, and Patsy said that if I were a resident of Boulder, I would tell my friends to keep your babies close to you. There's someone out there. And it just seemed kind of overdone. And I remember another interview that they did where someone says, so you think like someone came in and took her, basically is what they're asking her. And at first she like starts to shake her head like no. And then John Ramsey says yes. And she like starts to shake her head yes. And then like continues. So, I mean, I don't know, like maybe that's just how she was reacting in the moment. Like I said, I've never been in their shoes. It's just weird. It's strange.
If that's what she believes, right? Like, she's still on this story that somebody broke into their house, left a ransom note, took their daughter, then killed the daughter, hid her downstairs. I don't know. Whatever she feels like happened. Again, you would want that person to get caught. So why are you not cooperating?
No matter what it took, and you would do anything in your power to do that.
Yeah.
Anything.
You wouldn't be sitting there in a TV interview being like, oh, people of Boulder, be careful, there's somebody out there, while simultaneously not helping to find that person.
Well, and why would you want to leave right away, too?
Oh, yeah.
You would want to stay until they found who did that.
Scheduling a flight to leave. Like, where are you going to go? Like, what are you going to do? But I can see the thought pattern of, like, I need to get my family, if that's the way you're thinking, like, I need to get my family to a safe place, or they need to be away from all of this drama. But also, like you're the dad. You just found your kid dead. Why are you thinking about... I understand trauma can make people do weird things, but why immediately go from being hysterical to, oh, I'm going to schedule my private jet to go take us somewhere else, when you're worried about somebody being out there who's kidnapping and killing kids?
So back to Lou Smith, he was unable to successfully challenge the police department's belief that the Ramseys were involved, and the DA's office tried to take control over the investigation. And I guess there was animosity between the police and the DA's office, and the pressure to obtain a conviction was making it worse. So the governor decided to kind of take over, and he called a grand jury together. And in September of 1998, a grand jury was formed. And in 1999, they returned a true bill to charge the Ramseys with placing the child at risk in a way that led to her death, with obstructing an investigation of a murder based on the probable cause standard applied in such grand jury proceedings. And that quote's from, I think it's Murderpedia. But Boulder County DA Alex Hunter decided not to prosecute them because he didn't feel like he had enough evidence to get a conviction. Because, as you know, a grand jury can decide to press charges against someone, but the DA has to be the one who finally says, let's take this to trial or whatever. And he didn't think there was enough evidence, supposedly, right? But, like, if you look at the words, obstructing an investigation of murder based on the probable cause standard, and I guess they said they placed the child at risk in a way that led her to her death. So they're not coming out and saying, oh, we think that the parents did it, but we definitely think they had a part in whatever happened that led to her death and then led to the cover-up of whoever really did it. So if you think about it that way, who was in the home? Patsy, John, and Burke. which is another thing that kind of leads you to think that maybe Burke was involved in some way.
Did we have any information of when they finally decided to talk to him, how that went, what he said?
Yes, you can go on YouTube and you can watch the actual interviews, and they're a little bit weird. And also you can watch, even now, there's a Dr. Phil interview with him recently. And he just seems like, I don't know if maybe he's just got kind of a weird social, the way he interacts socially is kind of odd. If there's something going on there, I don't know. But he just seems kind of strange, and he smiles a lot. And he kind of says he knew what happened. But another thing is, I didn't say this earlier and I should have. The Ramseys told the police that Burke slept through everything. So if he slept through everything, whose voice was on that call that they supposedly can hear? And also, how does he know what happened?
Exactly.
And how would you, yes, maybe they live in this giant, so this is another thing. Here we go again. Sorry guys, we're all over the place. But another thing is, you come home or down the stairs, you find that this ransom note is there. What's the first thing you do? Me, as a parent, I'd be running to check on my children. One, to see if that ransom note was true. And if I did not find my daughter, yes, I would be freaking out and I'd be like, oh my God, we need to call 911. But honestly, my first thought would be, shit, I've got to go check on Burke. I've got to make sure Burke's here.
Yeah, what if
how
they
do
took
you
my
know
other
if
kid?
he's been, even if it's not mentioned in the note, how do you know he's there? How do you know he's safe? How do you know he's alive?
And when you just want to see that, just to confirm, just to put your eyes on your,
Yeah, you'd be waking his ass up. Sorry, this makes me angry. You'd be waking his ass up, you'd be getting him out of bed, and you wouldn't be letting him out of your sight, right?
Right. Or you would be asking him.
Leaving him alone in the house.
I think that you would be asking him, have you seen your sister? Or did you hear your sister? Have you heard, I don't know, I've woken my brothers up in the middle of the night being freaked out, being like, do you know where Dad is? Or this whole thing is weird. Yes. I have so many, I have so many questions, but I can't form them in my head yet. Because
it's all just... It only leaves you with questions, right? 1, if that was true, what are you thinking? 2, how did they not press charges on these parents? How? If a grand jury decided there was enough evidence, they should have taken it to court, right? 2 of the lead investigators in the case had opposing views, and so Lou Smith and Steve Thomas ultimately resigned. And Smith was because he believed that the investigation had been not handled correctly and it had overlooked the intruder hypothesis. And then Thomas because the DA's office had interfered with and failed to support the police during the investigation, and he felt like they had overlooked that it was the parents. So in 2002, Mary Lacey, she took over the investigation. She's the DA who came on and took over the investigation. And she concluded that the murder had to have been committed by an intruder. Based on what evidence? I don't know. And in 2008, the DA announced that the touch DNA confirmed that the Ramseys were not involved in the murder of JonBenet. And so that's when multiple investigators resigned because of their beliefs around the case. And they were pretty upset. And some of them have come forward, written books about it and have been on documentaries and spoken about it. And they're not very happy with it.
Well, I can understand that because so we're not the police department that's handling it, right? And we probably don't have all of the facts sitting right in front of us. But clearly, from what has been released to the public, what we know, you've got to be crazy to not think that somehow the family was involved.
The family's involved.
What's the key thing that, for some reason, the public doesn't know about, that all of these people are concluding that it's an intruder? Because all the information that we have that's been given to us is that there was no sign of an intruder. So why is that
being withheld?
Why is that all of... Yeah, why is that the conclusion that that multiple people are coming to? Why? If that's such a prevalent thing that people keep saying that, and they're like, we're not going to press charges on the parents because it's obviously an intruder. The next person that comes on says, yep, it was an intruder. Why?
You got to tell us something. It's 2022. Yeah. Or even when it was 2001, a cold case is going to be a cold case until... I don't know, maybe I'm saying the wrong thing here, but you have a cold case full of speculation. It's been the subject of major news media. You're at a point where you've had years and years and years of being stumped. At what point do you release information that you're withholding because only the killer would know that? Or, and I get it. I understand that aspect of it. You want to keep some stuff close to home so you can actually prove and pinpoint things. But we've seen recently how the public can help, how civilians can help solve crime. So you've got to give something. So like Jessica said, why? Why is it an intruder? Did you find a lock that was picked? Was there a screen that was cut? Did you find some fingerprints? Like what did you find that all of a sudden this person who's taking over is like, oh no, you guys are all wrong. I'm going to risk all these people leaving, working on this case to tell you that it's an intruder.
And that's a pretty crucial point too, right? Like if it is some intruder that was wandering around Boulder, why would you not recruit the masses? Yeah. Like especially now, like it's so far in the future. Like if there is information that points to an intruder, put it out there. Somebody may know somebody who saw somebody that knows who that is
or said something.
Like
yes. Come on, like how many people who have committed these crimes keep it to themselves?
Brag.
They want to brag about it. They talk about it. They say things.
Or they go on and do it again.
And they do it. And like what similarities in this case are related to other cases? Or has there been any has there been any cases that this is related to? Or is it truly, like, are you trying to take, because you feel, I get it, you can feel for people, right? You feel bad for the family, so you're trying to take the attention away. But are you doing that out of like selfish reasons or selfish bias? Or are you really looking at the case for what it is?
Where was it ever determined where, I know you said that they were the mom's paintbrushes that were used. So is it just like rope?
It was like a wire, I want to say, I think. I'm not exactly sure, but they linked everything basically used
to the home. I feel like that's pretty crucial information as to where in the home as well, too. So this intruder broke in, scavenged these items, and then committed, I don't know, took the daughter probably, I don't know, maybe downstairs to this hidden room that nobody can find.
Also, you're not going to hear somebody get bludgeoned to death?
Yes.
Or hear somebody fighting
and
off.
She's going to scream.
She's fighting back.
Yeah. You've got injuries that clearly indicate that she wasn't just laying there taking it. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think parents also often are light sleepers, especially when you have little kids. Like you don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, I hear every sound in my house.
Thank you for listening. Additional information for each case can be found on our website, truthliesandalibis.buzzsprout.com. New episodes will be uploaded every Monday. Find us on Instagram and Facebook at Truth, Lies, and Alibis.